City Council meeting. Thank you for joining us in this remote meeting format, which enables the City Council to meet, hear from the community, and take care of business while keeping everyone safe. Anyone wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by following the access instructions listed for this meeting on the public webcast and meeting materials webpage. Tonight's meeting will include a public forum. If you wish to participate and haven't already done so, please raise your virtual hand now to join the speakers queue in one of two ways. For those viewing the meeting on a computer or other device, click on the hand icon. For those listening to the meeting on a phone, press *9. We will continue accepting raised hands until 7:35. The meeting moderator will disallow any requests to speak that are made after the deadline. You will have 2.5 minutes to speak. As a reminder, speakers now have the option of turning on your video when you're called on to provide testimony. As your turn is announced, the meeting moderator will temporarily promote you to panelist status, and you can unmute and turn on the video if you wish. And we encourage everyone to use this in a responsible way. Our intent is simply to be able to see one another's faces as testimony is given. Finally, thank you everyone for your continued patience and flexibility. As always, feel free to contact any one of us individually or together via email or voicemail if there is testimony you were not able to provide or wish to get to us in a different manner. And with that, I will formally open the meeting with a land acknowledgement. Since time immemorial, the Kalapuya people have been the indigenous stewards to our region, building dynamic communities, maintaining balance with wildlife, and enacting sustainable land practices. Following treaties between 1851 and 1855, Kalapuya people were dispossessed of their indigenous homeland by the United States government and forcibly removed to the Coast Reservation in Western Oregon. The city of Eugene is built within the traditional homelands known as Kalapuya Ilihi. Kalapuya descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians of Oregon, and continue to make contributions in our communities here and across the lands. We acknowledge the inherent political sovereignty of the 9 federally recognized tribal nations in the state of Oregon and all American Indian, Alaska Native people who live here. Our first item of business is a ceremonial matter, acknowledging this particular holiday, Indigenous Peoples Day. And so I will read a proclamation. Sitting on Kalapuya land, our city joins 15 states and more than 150 other cities and towns across the nation that recognize today, the second Monday in October, as Indigenous Peoples Day. Since 1977, more and more governing bodies have opted to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. To memorialize this commitment, on March 14, 2016, the City Council adopted Resolution 5148, declaring the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day. For the city of Eugene, instead of commemorating conquest, we recognize resilience. On this day, we celebrate the heritage of Indigenous peoples to show respect of their history and to enlighten the public toward a better understanding of modern Indigenous communities. The city values the many contributions made to our community through Indigenous peoples' knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and deep cultural contributions that have substantially shaped the character of our city and state. Since time immemorial, the Kalapuya people have been the indigenous stewards to this land, building dynamic communities, maintaining balance with wildlife, and enacting sustainable land practices. Our commemoration of Indigenous Peoples Day is one step on the path to replacing harmful historic untruths with knowledge about displacement, genocide, and loss. With knowledge about displacement, genocide and loss, resilience, and belonging. Indigenous Peoples Day pushes against erasure and urges reevaluation of history and recognize Indigenous representation, equality, and justice. We are inspired by local and regional Indigenous people who continue to fight against the systemic racism and injustices inflicted by the United States government. We are committed to improving our city's actions that pursue a higher quality of life and well-being for our Indigenous communities. As mayor, I stand with city leadership for inclusivity and the recognition of past harm and offer our commitment to work towards change. We pledge better government to government relationships between the city and our local Indigenous leadership. We will build the foundation for that respectful and strengthened relationship by committing ourselves to a deeper understanding of the effects of our history through training and education on decolonization. Now, therefore, I, Lucy Vennis, Mayor of Eugene, Oregon, proclaim support of the recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day on the second Monday in October and ask the residents of Eugene to utilize this day as an opportunity to reflect on the ongoing struggles of Indigenous people of this land, to celebrate the thriving cultures and values of the Indigenous peoples of our region, and to stand in solidarity with Indigenous peoples elsewhere. Encourage other businesses, organizations, and public institutions to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day on the second Monday in October, and commit to continue efforts to promote the well-being and growth of Eugene's Indigenous community. All right. And now I think we are ready to begin with committee reports and items of interest. Are there councilors who have something they would like to share? Councilor Siret.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for that excellent proclamation with the very specific list of actions and intentions behind the proclamation. That was excellent. Thank you. I wanted to give council a heads up about something kind of exciting that will come to us in various ways. And that is regarding the MIMS house at the intersection of High and 3rd, which is the NAACP's headquarters. And the NAACP is hoping to expand the programs they have there and the services they offer and the activities. And they're recognizing that they will need a code change, go through a code change process for that to be designated a special area historic zone. So that will come to the Planning Commission and then to us at some point. But there's also an additional way that we could assist them. So there are fees associated with doing this kind of code change, and we, by charter, I believe, cannot waive those fees. But City Council could choose to use council contingency funds or some other funds to pay those fees, which are not enormous. The estimate is around $5,000, but would be a significant contribution to the MIMS house. They're working on, right now they've got a food pantry operating out of there. They're working on a solar installation project. They are wanting to model different innovative ways to deal with stormwater. So, you know, Eric Richardson, the president there, he and his board have a lot of excellent ideas. And so I was giving this forecast so that if any of you wanted to reach out to him and learn more about what they're doing there before any code changes come before us, or we consider a motion to assist paying their fees, that you would have a chance to do that. But at some point, perhaps in November, I will likely be bringing a motion around assisting with those fees. And then the city manager might want to add to what I had to say about that. But then on the, Councilor Ye is going to speak to the fact that some of us are wearing pink in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I just want to note that my 88-year-old mother is a breast cancer survivor. She had breast cancer when she was about 42 years old, never had a reoccurrence, so very grateful for that. So it is a very personal issue for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And I missed the memo, even though I knew it was coming. So, but I'm thinking pink. I'm just thinking it. So, and I wear pink a lot. All right, with that, Councilor Groves and then Councilor Ye.
Thank you, Mayor. And I too appreciate the proclamation that you read. I just wanted to share that the mayor and I had the opportunity to ride electric bikes on October 1st as elected officials were invited to come do this. It was a real nice event. It was fun. I was surprised how well they performed. We also got to see how a cargo electric bike works. And I was stunned when I learned it could pull around 9,000 pounds delivering down in the downtown area. It was quite impressive. I think it's a viable source of transportation here in our community with all of our multimodal paths and lanes that we have on the streets. And I actually want to get one. I thought it was a really nice way to get around, and we had a great afternoon. I don't have a stitch of pink clothing, but I'm wearing a pink ribbon, if you can see it on my shirt, in support of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. That was the best I could come up with on short notice. I used to have an old fire department t-shirt that was pink that we'd wear on this day as a fire department, but that went to the back to logistics, like all my fire gear. So anyway, thank you.
Sorry, I have a sticky mute button. Councilor Ye and then Councilor Keating.
Thank you. So I guess everyone knows why we're wearing pink. So thank you. Breast Cancer Awareness Month is an annual campaign to raise awareness about the impact of this disease. On average, every 2 minutes, someone is diagnosed in the United States with breast cancer. And it is estimated that just over 46,000 people will die this year from breast cancer. However, thanks in part to this campaign, progress is being made. Death rates have declined since the 1990s with increased awareness of screening, early detection, and improvements in treatment options. While people assigned female at birth are at the highest risk of diagnosis, no matter your gender, if you have a chest area, then you should talk to your healthcare professional about screening. All people have breast tissues and could potentially get breast cancer. Lastly, I want to do a big thank you to EPD, who went pink again this year by adding pink decals to their cars and motorcycles to raise awareness and show support. And I'm a little embarrassed to mention, I don't know if the fire department might be doing the same thing, and I will find out. So I will educate myself, but it's a huge, obviously here at the City of Eugene, it's an important month to us. And I just wanted to share so everyone understood what it's about. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Keating and then Councilor Evans.
Thank you, Mayor. I am wearing pink, but the lighting is subpar at my new house. I have not mastered my Zoom lighting yet. This is actually a pink shirt. Councilor Groves, I have several other pink shirts, but I don't think you and I are the same size. But I appreciate the ribbon wearing. I appreciate Councilor Ye organizing all of us to stand united and wear pink or think pink, as the mayor is thinking pink, in support of finding a cure and increasing awareness of breast cancer throughout our community. Thank you. It is Indigenous Peoples Day. Mayor, your powerful proclamation is greatly appreciated. And it is National Coming Out Day for the LGBTQIA community. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention National Coming Out Day. Right here in Lane County, Lane Community College is searching for a president. And you may have received, might be an email right there, alerting you to participate in a survey put out by the LCC board, an institution I am intimately familiar with and have great respect for and adoration for, serving 2 terms on that board. I welcome colleagues' input and participation in the public search for a new president. It is one of the most critical things that a college board can do. And your voice, your input, whether you're on the Eugene City Council or you're listening to this president, watching this presentation as we speak, your voice and your input are welcome. Please visit lanecc.edu. Tomorrow is the deadline to complete that survey. Tomorrow, October 12th at 2:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Evans and then Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm not wearing anything pink. I do have pink ties in my wardrobe, but I will share with you that my father's name was Pink. How that happened, I have no idea, but it truly was Pink. So, but I also wanted to say, I'm going to be out of commission for a couple of weeks, starting on Wednesday. Plan to hopefully be back by November 1st. And then I'm going to have another situation that I have to deal with around between Christmas and New Year's. And I just might as well say it. Yeah, I have prostate cancer. I was just diagnosed several weeks ago. In addition to that, my other DNA gift was renal failure. So I'm dealing with both of those issues, but they're not going to get me down. I'm going to fight back, and the mayor and the city manager know what my situation is right now. But I figured, might as well tell you guys.
Thank you, Councillor Evans, for sharing that with everyone. And we all wish you a speedy recovery, and we wish your doctors and nurses and all your medical providers competent hands and good judgment, and that they will take the best care possible of you, because we want you and we miss you and we care about you. So we look forward to having you back in full health. Thank you. And with that, Councillor Clark and then Councillor Semple.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo the mayor's statements and sentiments there, Greg, Councillor Evans. All of our prayers and our best wishes and our hearts are with you, man. And please don't hesitate if there's something you or your family needs to call on any of us. I would suspect all of us would jump to be of assistance in any way we can. You'll also notice that I'm not wearing pink. I don't own anything that's pink. And I'm a child of the 80s, so it's not like I don't like it. I wore all kinds of stuff way back when that was pink. It's my daughter's fault, actually. I don't know, a couple of years ago, I was shopping for clothes and I thought this pink dress shirt was awesome. And my daughter threatened to make a scene in the middle of JCPenney's if I bought this pink shirt. So I didn't do it. I complied with my daughter. But in all seriousness, I appreciate the efforts to highlight this terrible disease and this time when all of us pay attention to it. I would encourage everyone who's listening to us right now to act individually in that regard, to donate money, to be involved. There's plenty of folks, the Real Men Wear Pink campaigns. There's plenty of campaigns to allow you to invest in the opportunity to help people find a cure for breast cancer. I encourage everybody to jump in and do their little part. From my experience, my former mother-in-law died of breast cancer at the age of 61. And that was about 15 years ago, about the time I started council. And my children were very young. They were, 6 and 4 at the time. My former mother-in-law was a wonderful human being, and my children were deprived of their grandmother as a result of this horrible disease. It's something that's near and dear to me, and I hope people will, as I have done, jump in and participate in whatever way they can to contribute to the effort to find a cure for this terrible terrible disease. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily, sorry, Counselor Semple and Counselor Zelenka next.
Thank you. Greg, all my good thoughts will be with you. You're very important to us, and I know you're strong. Breast cancer certainly affects most of us in one way or another. My cousin died of breast cancer in her 30s, so it's an important issue. And then switching gears, I have a board and commission report from the Housing Policy Board, which I have really enjoyed participating in. We usually meet every other month, and we have met every week for the last month or so, really putting a lot of time into the suggestions for rental protections. And we've really dug through them and I think done a great job. Of course, we came up with too many, and I said, no, top ones, come on, we want council to be able to do this, but I'm sure we'll let you know the rest of them. Anyway, I know we'll mention it in the HIP report and then I think in November, but some really good work was done by that board and I'm looking forward to sharing it. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Zelenka.
Thank you, Mayor. Greg, good luck. And my family's hearts and thoughts are with you. So hang strong, man. I too don't own anything pink, but I have had several friends that are breast cancer survivors, fortunately. So to me, it's a personal issue as well. It is a horrible disease and we should do everything we can to eradicate it. Mayor, thank you for that proclamation that you read. That was well done. And I am looking forward to the renter protections coming before this council. I've been asking for those for several months before summer break even. So eager to see have those come before council so we can act on them. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't always share, but I had a couple of things I wanted to share tonight. First of all, I just want to thank you, Councilor Evans, for your courage in sharing that news. I know that's not easy to do. This is a very public setting, but hopefully it gives other people that same courage to take care of themselves, and we'll all be with you, here to support you. And I know the staff that are listening to this are also sending their love and support. So we're here with you. Shifting gears, last week was the International City County Managers Association annual meeting, which was in Portland this year. It was also virtual. I attended virtually. And I wanted to just share that the City of Eugene won two program awards at that conference. The first was the Community Equity and Inclusion Award for the Young Women's Fire Camp that has been so successful over the last 10 years. And the other was the Community Sustainability Award for our Love Food Not Waste program, for how we're supporting community sustainability through citywide food waste collection in Eugene. So I wanted to share those two things. Thank you.
That is really great news. Thank you for sharing that. That's very exciting. That fire camp for the Young Women's Fire Camp is really pretty amazing, and Love Food Not Waste. Super. What's not to like? I see Councilor Gross has a comment, but I just wanted to add just a little update of my own, which is in addition to going on the electric bike ride, which was a revelation to me of the things that make me most uneasy about riding a bike were actually resolved by riding an electric bike. So that was pretty great. And I encourage people to give it a try and look into them. The other thing is that I sit on the Metropolitan Policy Committee, and we had a presentation on last Thursday about the Oregon Transportation Plan. This plan has not been updated since 2006. And so they're going through a process of updating it. It will be open to public comment this month. And I bring this up because the presentation was absolutely inspiring and encouraging and very much aligned with this city council's goals. And as they looked at this report, they looked at drivers of change and how they had to think about transportation overall. And those drivers in change include climate change and resiliency and technological changes and equity and inclusion. And I think, you might take a look at some of that information. I can share the slides. I thought it was really compelling and exciting. And again, if you want to weigh in on it, I'm not exactly sure when in October the engagement begins, but you can just go to the ODOT or just Google Oregon Transportation Plan, and it'll pop right up in a search. And but really supporting the work that we're doing locally, and very exciting. And with that, I'll turn it back to Councilor Gross for another comment.
Very quick one. I just wanted my colleagues and the public that's listening to understand that Young Women's Fire Camp was completely developed by our women firefighters, developed and run by them. And I think it's probably the best program of its kind in the country. You know, basically we used to just say, what do you need? And then got out of their way. And they do the whole thing. And I think it's very powerful and has had a real positive impact on a lot of young women over the years, some of who have become firefighters. Thank you.
Thank you. And if that is all, I think we are ready to move on to a consent calendar motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the items on consent calendar 1.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you very much. That passes. And now I'll roll into the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the City Council on any city-related issues except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official. When it is your turn, the moderator will announce your name and promote you to panelist status. Please state your name clearly, and for Eugene residents, your ward, if known, before beginning your comments. Again, each person will have 2 minutes to speak. If you are watching the meeting, the timer should be visible. A yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds to complete your comments. The red light indicates the end of the 2.5 minutes. For those who have connected to the meeting via phone and don't have the benefit of seeing the timer, please be aware that your microphone will be muted at the 2.5 minute mark. And with that, I will turn it over. I guess, Naya, are you managing the queue? I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, Mayor, I am. Thank you. So tonight we have 8 or 7 speakers, and we're going to pull up a slide that will show the order in which you will be called to speak. Okay, and so our first speaker is going to be Lynn Woodrich, followed by Marty Wilder.
Naya, before Lynn's comment, I have a point of information or a point of inquiry for the mayor and city attorney. Mayor, may I?
Yeah, what's
Thanks.
the question?
At our last work session, we didn't get to the right-of-way resolution.
It's coming. It's
Right.
coming.
And I just wanted to reference that for the public, that I recognize it's coming because we talked about it in our work session. But for those who are tuning in, if we needed to add it to our agenda publicly, because we clearly didn't get to it, we talked about not getting to it, but because this is a different meeting, do we need to add that to the agenda at the end of this, at the end of public comment?
Nothing formal needs to happen. You can take up the topic at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Keating. Okay, and Lynn, go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, my name's Lynn Woodrich. I'm the Active Bethel Community Co-Chair, living in Ward 6 with my almost 93-year-old dad, and am a homeowner in the Bethel portion of Ward 8. I'm reminding you again of the importance of an area plan for Bethel. We've been neglected for almost 40 years, and the neighbors need to have a voice in the future of Bethel. Today, I spoke to a Highway 99 business owner. He's fed up with the way the city has located the homeless and criminal services along our Highway 99 corridor. We're hoping to begin our planning in the near future, but fear that the way Bethel is viewed as the armpit of Eugene will make our amenities goals an uphill climb. We ask you to have the homeless and criminal services moved away from the Bethel area to the city center or near the new homeless services center, so we can entice the restaurants, theaters, and shopping malls to our area. We're hoping to begin a mural project in Bethel with a Kalapuya theme. It's only in the early stages, but thought it would be appropriate to bring it up on Indigenous Peoples Day today. As a recent example of the urgency of the area plan, the neighbors next to Justin Ponds never heard the property was up for sale as surplus property. Tonight, you'll be voting on annexing the property with the ponds into the city. The Snake River Properties developer has told us that he would be willing to have the city take over the large pond so the neighbors could access it for recreation and fishing, where there are bass, carp, crappie, and trout. This is what we want. Please move up the Envision Eugene to help the Bethel area plan for a future where developers don't take away the green spaces they enjoy and Bethel residents' voices are heard. Councilor Evans, please let me know if there are any Bethel issues I can help you with while you're gone. And also, my cousin Jean Woodrich started the Women's Fire Camp. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Next is Marty Wilder, followed by Dal Olek.
Hello, City Council. This is Marty Wilder from Ward 2. I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about the CSI and cahoots. Because it seemed to me that some people on the committee or on the council heard public comment and understand how important this is to us in Eugene. But for some reason, you keep turning to Chief Skinner for the okay on whether or not to put more funding into cahoots. I don't think you need to do that. If you believe in the alternate response model, you kind of have the authority to say, we want to prioritize this and we want to invest in this program that we believe in, that has brought notoriety to our city, that we know is needed, that we know we need to expand, and we know the public wants. There's no reason why you can't continue to have cahoots contracted through EPD on the one hand, and also use CSI funds to stabilize the program, to prepare it for the expansion that you know it needs. And it's sort of a weak argument to say, well, we don't know whether or not they can expand if you're not going to put the money into it. And I ask you to please just talk to Ebony Morgan. Stop asking through Chief Skinner. It's kind of a conflict of interest to do that for him. He's trying to get enough. I know he supports the program, but his priority is to get the CSI funds for all other things. Just ask Ebony directly, bring her to the table. She deserves to be there. And also, the more calls that we get going through cahoots, the better the police response time is going to be, and the police get to focus on the calls that they specialize in. So thank you very much. I hope that you can take it upon yourselves to, whatever way you can do it, whether it means talking to the budget committee and saying this is a priority, or establishing it, that this is what safety looks like in Eugene. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Next is Dal Olek, followed by Jocelyn St. Clair. Please unmute.
Okay. There you go. Thank you. I'm unmuted. Hi. My name is Del Olek. I'm the local president for ASME 1724. We're the general service workers for the city of Eugene. We have been bargaining. I've been a 25-year employee. I worked here for a long time, and I work in public works in the Permanent Information Center. Love my job, great place to work, and I'm glad to be part of the union. ASME has been bargaining with the city since March. We made quite a bit of progress with agreements on proposals from both sides. However, in September, we ran into some issues, and now we're preparing for mediation. And as you can imagine, the outstanding issues are wages and a mandatory furlough proposal from the city. We believe that our proposal for financial proposal is fairly reasonable. We understand the financial stress the city and the organization's under. We presented data to support our requests. However, city managers seem to want to continue a generally unfair system of compensation. And when I say unfair, I'm referring to the extra weeks of vacation that only managers get, the extra 1% in deferred compensation that managers get. Are you aware that 50 managers make over $90,000 a year at the city? You give them 3% a year in deferred comp, that works out to over $1 million in retirement benefits for a 20-year employee. One of the things the city's asked me to do is to give up our seniority and bumping rights. The city has a proposal on the table that basically allows them to reduce employee wages by 25% anytime they choose. We find that unreasonable, and we believe that it's, we're willing to work with the city anytime there have been financial difficulties in the past. We've given up zero COLA back in 2012. The bargaining unit's been very collaborative, and we see that this kind of right-size the organization anytime we want by cutting wages by 25% is unreasonable. We hope you'll take a look into some of the policies that the city is proposing, and I'm out of time, so thank you.
Thank you, Dal. Next is Jocelyn St. Clair, followed by Sandra Bishop.
My name is Jocelyn St. Clair. I'm a sophomore at Willamette High School and currently reside in Ward 7. A few months ago, Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, came to our city to tour LTD's new electric buses. Why did he choose to come here, though? Secretary Buttigieg chose Eugene because he saw something at LTD that could help to transform our entire nation. I know that you, Councillor Keating, are a vehement advocate for clean energy transportation. So you know that electric vehicles are unequivocally essential to us if we want to ride the road to a sustainable future. As someone who wants to preserve the environment and keep its beauty pristine, you, Councillor Zelenka, must understand the consequences we'll face if we don't act on this soon. The electric buses that are proudly presented to the public here in Eugene are for our entire city's transportation, but I've heard very little about school buses. Don't they help our community just as much? Without school buses, 55% of kids in K-12 schools would struggle to make it to their daily classes. And without the next generation, who will step up to help Eugene prosper? Diesel exhaust is recognized internationally as a cancer-causing agent, and these fumes result in poor air quality for our community, also containing particulate matter that has been proven to cause asthma. All the while, children are disproportionately affected. Councillor Ye, one of your primary focuses is the health of Eugene citizens. Children have faster breathing rates and lungs that aren't fully developed, making diesel fumes especially toxic for them. If we're sending kids off to learn every day, then why are we poisoning them on the way there? Electric school buses could assist our health in flourishing, easing the burden that diesel-powered buses have dumped on us. Though I'm not asking you to scrape together millions of dollars to replace our fleets. The Department of Transportation has posted a brand new grant on grants.gov, offering $3.27 million to governments that apply. If you, Councillor Groves, want to fight pollution threatening to infiltrate our community in a financially balanced manner, then look no further than this deal. Electric charging is also significantly cheaper than filling up a tank with diesel. It costs roughly $300 to pour gas into a bus, but only about $14 to charge an electric model. In addition, many utility companies are willing to install charging infrastructure for little or no cost. There's never been a better time for Eugene to upgrade our fleets and ensure that we're able to keep up in this race against time, guaranteeing that we're doing everything we can to keep our lively city bustling with energy. Because if we have the chance to emerge as a leader and steer the rest of the world down a better path, why not seize it? And if you have any questions, I'd love to shoot you an email and talk further. Thank you for your consideration. I'm sorry if I had to go a little fast.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Next is Sandra Bishop, followed by Ted Shriro.
Thank you. My name is Sandra Bishop. I'm in Ward 2, and I'm here tonight to draw your attention to the fact that you have an open pit mine operating in South Eugene. The site at 40th and Patterson, where EWEB is planning to build 2 large water storage reservoirs, is now an open pit mine. Most residents never imagined or anticipated this much level of disruption and pollution. EWEB has to go through a very disruptive process before they can get to anything near construction. They are in destruction. On August 2nd, the site was cleared. It was clear cut, approximately 2.5 acres of urban forest was clear cut in 3 hours, thanks to the city attorney manipulating and delaying the issuance of a permit. So the forest is gone, and now most of the soil is gone, and now they're on to rock hauling, but they're still hauling a lot of soil. All of these loads are shedding all kinds of materials throughout the city while they're hauled away. We're talking dust, we're talking dirt, we're talking rock. There was actually a rock spill from one of the trucks on Hilliard today. So I want to talk about, that's about the site. There's up to 90 double dump trucks leaving the site a day. I want to talk to you about, please talk to your colleagues at EWEB and ask them what they are going to do to cut this pollution. I can't imagine having a breathing problem or having a child with asthma. This is exaggerated. These trucks are traveling as far as 40th and Hilliard out to 52nd in Springfield through a lot of neighborhoods, including downtown at times. Please look at the cost of this. The city charter requires that EWEB give you annual reports. Ask them how, without authority, they were able to double the size of an infrastructure project, and where are they going to get the resources to pay for that? This is a citywide issue. Ratepayers throughout the city are going to have to be paying for this. You're going to be hearing more and more about that. So thank you so much for all the work you do.
Thank you, Sandra. Next is Ted Shiro, followed by Katie Preston.
Hi, my name is Ted Shiro. I am in Ward 1. I am an employee of the City of Eugene. I have been for 6 years. I work in Parks and Open Space. I'm also on the executive board of the ASME Union. I'm also on the bargaining team. And so I think Dal spent a little time talking about that bargaining process, but we are really looking for some council support on this just to sort of come to an end with this bargaining and really get something that is fair. And the part that I wanted to talk about was the wages piece. So we've asked for a very fair cost of living increase, and it's based on research that has been done, which we are able to share if you guys are interested. And we're like 2% behind on comparable jurisdictions. And so that's what we're looking for, a reasonable cost of living increase. And as Dal pointed out, what has happened is somehow it's been linked to this Article 11, which is trying to look for an easier way to lay off employees and to do it in a way that is not like any other union contract anywhere nearby. So it's sort of unprecedented. We're not, fire isn't being asked to do this. The police aren't being asked to do this. So we're unclear as to why they're requiring this, loss of union rights to, the 600 plus employees that we represent. And I did just want to take a minute to point out that, the folks that we represent are the folks that have really been keeping the city going through the pandemic, and we've all suffered through this pandemic, but I am a construction inspector. So, I'm out there doing construction inspections, have been, at the beginning of the pandemic, through the pandemic, and so have, many of the folks we represent, and, putting ourselves and our families at risk. And it seems like it'd be great to resolve this. And so we're looking for council to help support this resolution. And we're looking for just a very fair contract. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ted. Next is Katie Preston, followed by Brooklyn.
Hello?
Hi, go ahead, Katie.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name's Katie Preston, and I wanted to say hi, Mayor and Council, and I want to thank you for making the proclamation on Indigenous Peoples Day. Oh, there I am. I want to thank you for making the proclamation on Indigenous Peoples Day. And I also want to say that I think that listening to our Indigenous brothers and sisters, that they've been very clear and unified across this nation about what it is that they need in order to heal fully from what has happened to them over so many generations and what continues to happen to them to this day. And part of what we need to do is return some of their land back in order for them to be able to do all the things that they need to heal, to be creative, to contribute, to be able to sustain themselves. They cannot do that without having land. And I really encourage the city of Eugene to think about how they can do that. I just think it's quite a travesty that there's not a single acre of land here that is owned by the Kalapuya tribe. And I think that we could do something about that, whether, working with other agencies, the county, the National Forest, BLM, and the city, of course. We need to be real about thinking about how we can do that. And so I would like to hear at some point, what city council is doing on that, and how we're actually helping Native American tribes here heal and support themselves, because we can't just have an empty gesture for Indigenous Peoples Day. We have to really do something. Not to say that it's totally empty, but I think that what they've asked for is something much more, and that's having their land, some of their land back. So yeah, look into the red deal that talks a lot about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And our final speaker is Brooklyn. Brooklyn, you had your hand raised and it was lowered, so I just wanted to make sure you still wanted to speak.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to make a comment about the land acknowledgements. I'm not from here. I'm Little Shell Chippewa from Montana, originally from northern Minnesota and North Dakota, where the Line 3 pipeline was just started, and where Indigenous water protectors have been brutalized and arrested over the last summer and further back. This month has been really difficult for me because at the same time as there's this kind of like pomp around Indigenous people and these land acknowledgements, there's still, today, the day after Biden signed Indigenous Peoples Day to be honored, water protectors were arrested outside of the White House violently. When you make a land acknowledgement, to me, it's almost like saying like, I got this car and I found out it was stolen and I'm like driving it and I don't even know who I got the car from. I'm like, won't even give the people a ride. And like, if you're gonna do a land acknowledgements, perhaps invite a Kalapua person to the council to represent the community. And when the last speaker said something about land back, everyone was like, oh, what does that mean? But you're like audacious enough to use the word decolonization. So if you're gonna use those words, then know what they mean and the things that go around them, because it's really ignorant and offensive to people who spend their lives learning about decolonization and the Native communities that depend on you guys opening your eyes, okay? Because these people are committed to the earth and to the future in a way that I don't think that you understand, okay? So take that for what you will. But I actually am not impressed with the Indigenous land acknowledgements, because I want more substantial change and commitment to this earth and the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooklyn. And Mayor, that concludes our public forum for those who signed up before the 7:35 deadline.
Thank you. I thank you for everyone who came to speak today, and I'm looking to see if there are counselors who wish to respond. I see Counselor Ye. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I want to thank Brooklyn and Katie for coming and speaking tonight. I can tell from the way Brooklyn spoke that it was not an easy thing for her to talk about. And it's not easy for any of us to talk about. Land acknowledgements can feel hollow when they're not backed up with anything. So I wanted to briefly just talk about how the City of Eugene is working with our Native partners, government to government, to figure out what support and what allyship looks like for our different tribal governments, and how we can connect and support the things that they care about and the priorities that they have, rather than coming to the table with a bunch of our own ideas, which has probably been what's historically happened, but is not what we want to do going forward. And so while I don't have a lot of progress to share, it's a long journey, and this government and this council is committed to continuing that journey with our partners and to continue showing up at that table. And it's not easy, and I appreciate when the public comes and tells us how we can do it better. I just want to thank both of you for speaking tonight. And to Jocelyn, I think the electric buses from LTD are amazing too, but I can take absolutely no credit for that because that is not something the city does. And I would love to see our school buses be electric, but that is also something I would not be able to take credit for, because that would be a Bethel or a 4J decision. And I think it would be amazing if you went to those board meetings and shared the same ideas and passion with them as well, because I think that people would really be interested to hear what you have to say. And thank you. Oh, and last thing, this is the first union contract negotiation I have been on council during, and I'm wondering Catherine, if there's anything I need to know.
So if you're just generally what council's role is, the city charter, section 25 of your city charter designates the city manager as she'll be bargaining on behalf of the city council. So that's the representative, is the city manager. So states in the charter, as the city manager is your employee, you're certainly welcome to talk with her about it, but the council themselves doesn't have a role for the charter.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of those comments, Councillor Evans, and then Councillor Syret.
Well, I'll be brief. I just want to address Brooklyn's comments. Ever since the uprising over George Floyd happened last year, people of color and allies have been asking for certain things that are necessary for the progress of our communities. And what I wanted to say is, we asked for justice, but we got a holiday. We don't need any more holidays. We need justice. So, if you want to take, Juneteenth off, that's fine. But the real struggle is for us to get the justice that we deserve, particularly our Native American allies, because the United States of America broke every single treaty that they made with every Native American nation. So we're not giving the Kalapuya land back, but we should do something more than just talk about it.
Thank you, Councillor Syret.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks to everyone who came to speak. I had a few things I wanted to respond to. Same as Councillor Ye on the electric buses. The Bethel School District and 4J School District are responsible for the school buses, but I think that public comment was very powerful, and I hope you will deliver it to those boards. I believe they do have time for public comment at their meetings as well. And some of them might be watching this meeting too. I, as a union member myself and the labor rep for the nurses and hospitalists at Sacred Heart, I obviously have great interest in our city coming to a fair contract with our represented workers. And I'm we'll talk to the city manager about the details of that. And I'm happy also to speak directly with members of the bargaining team. If I'm able, I am starting my own contract negotiations on behalf of the hospitalists. So I actually might miss meetings here and there because of that. But I think I know the city manager, and I believe this council want our city employees to be treated fairly, and will support our city manager in seeking a contract that does that. Councillor Ye spoke a little bit to the folks who kind of criticized the fact that we had a land acknowledgement. There's a judgment there without actually knowing what work our mayor and city manager have done to be respectful in terms of how that land acknowledgement is being handled. It's not being done in a vacuum. As Councillor Ye mentioned, there is consultation with our local tribes, which we respect as sovereign governments. And I did not have whatever reaction that was described to the idea of returning land. I actually was making notes to respond to that. There's been several very inspirational examples of land being returned or purchased by tribal nations across the state of Oregon, and I've definitely paid attention to those. And I would absolutely entertain that idea, but we would need to do that with the in consultation with the tribal nations to know what their interests are, where they stand on that idea. On different note, I don't own any pink clothing. I had to borrow the shirt from my husband. And I'm very, very sorry to hear your news, your personal news that you shared, Councillor Evans. I appreciate you sharing it here with us. When I went through my own cancer diagnosis, I did not have the courage to share that at the time in a public way like that. I shared it after I had recovered, and I look forward to when you are sharing your recovery talk with us as well. Thank you.
Thank you all. Again, I thank you for the comments, and also really appreciate the comments that my colleagues on council have made in response to the public comment. And I think, yes, there is always more work behind the scenes than is always apparent. We have endeavored to start at the beginning in understanding our history, both in all ways with respect to Indigenous peoples and with people of color in our community, but particularly with Indigenous peoples in this context, and to begin to build relationships rather than begin right away with some sort of a transactional discussion. So we are kind of taking it back to the beginning and seeking to build those government to government relationships. And we say that in the proclamation. It is described in the proclamation. So we are holding ourselves to that. I also want to mention, in regard to the school bus testimony, that the 4J schools and LTD are part of our climate partners. So in our climate action plan, we do have Climate Collaborative, and those are two key partners. So reinforce the message that my counselors mentioned to all of you, that testimony before those bodies would be very, very beneficial. And with that, I think we are closed with that and can go on to consent calendar 2.
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. All right, I move to approve the items on consent calendar 2.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you, that passes. And then item number 6, ordinance extending the term of ordinance number 19775 and ordinance number 20397, granting to Comcast of Oregon 2 Inc. a franchise for operation of a cable telecommunications system. Oh, you're going to say the same thing again. Sorry, Councilor Ye. I'll
That's
turn it over to you.
I move to approve an ordinance extending the term of Ordinance 19775 and Ordinance 20397, granting to Comcast of Oregon 2 Incorporated a franchise for operation of a cable telecommunications system.
Second.
Is there any need for question or discussion on this at all? All right, all in favor? Oh, Councilor Surratt.
I just want to, sometimes when we take up this item, we get emails from people angry at us that we are granting Comcast exclusive rights to be the cable provider for the city of Eugene. That is not what's going on here. There are no exclusive rights for being the cable provider for the city of Eugene. We are granting this company access through a franchise agreement to do their operations. Other companies could also apply for the same benefit, or excuse me, privilege, I guess, and or provide their service in another way.
Thank you. With that, all in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And Councilor Evans, is your hand raised? No. No.
Mayor, neither is mine.
No, and neither is yours. Okay, wait, it's like, I didn't count that right. All right, all in favor again, please. Let me make sure I count this right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and opposed 2. Thank you very much. That passes 6-2. And the next item, an ordinance vacating Ferry Alley between East 3rd Avenue and East 2nd Alley and providing for an effective date. And I turn that over to Councilor Ye.
Thank you. I move to adopt the ordinance included as attachment C to this AIS, vacating Ferry Alley located between East 3rd Avenue and East 2nd Alley.
Second.
Any questions or discussion on this? All right, all in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that passes unanimously. Thank you. And now item 8, motions related to safe sleep sites.
Okay, I move to approve 2243 Roosevelt Boulevard, Square One Village for use as a safe tent site.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this? Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. As a formality, I'm voting no, as I have before. Until we have a more complete policy, I'm in favor of the idea of having safe sleep sites, excuse me. But I'm not in favor of doing so when that seems to me to be our only alternative to an effective policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and opposed 1. Thank you very much. That passes 7-1. And one more, Councilor Ye.
Thank you. I move to approve Danny Street, Everyone Village, for a safe tent and safe parking site.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this? All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and opposed 1. Thank you very much. That passes. And now we are ready to turn to our delayed second item from the earlier meeting on right-of-way. And I am going to turn that over to the manager first to introduce it.
Yeah, and I'm just going to actually turn it right over to Jennifer, who can introduce it and jump right in.
All right, thank you. And thank you for just rolling over this item for tonight's session. So good evening, Mayor and councilors. As Sarah said, I'm Jennifer Willer. I am the acting city engineer, and I requested this short, well, it was a short work session to advise you of a policy change for the city's federally funded transportation projects overseen by ODOT, and to get your direction on the process to bring the related items to council. So I don't have a formal presentation or slideshow, And I really just have about 5 minutes of explanation before I want to hear your thoughts and any questions that you have. So trying to keep this really short. Specifically, we are here this evening to talk about when the city needs to acquire additional right-of-way on federally funded transportation projects. And this may range from a strip of land for permanent right-of-way to temporary construction easements. Public Works Engineering carefully considers project design in relation to existing right-of-way, and we attempt through that design to avoid the need to acquire any additional right-of-way or property. However, there are occasions when acquiring additional right-of-way just can't be avoided. And in these acquisitions, they're most typically in the form of temporary easements used to adjust or match existing private property to the proposed design. So for example, driveway adjustments, transitions to building entries, and on rare occasions, additional property is needed to construct the permanent facility. The determination of any needed right-of-way happens when the project design is well developed. The development of federally funded projects typically includes the following phases. So it starts with conceptual or preliminary design. There's environmental documentation and permitting, or on federally funded projects, you'll often hear that called the NEPA clearance, right-of-way, and then final design. And typically the NEPA or environmental process is nearly complete by the time that formal right-of-way acquisition begins. But throughout this project development, it is a staff priority to minimize the acquisition of additional right-of-way. If additional right-of-way is needed, and that's permanent or temporary, it is also a staff priority to reach an agreement with the property owner on reasonable accommodations and compensation so that the formal exercise of eminent domain to acquire the property is not needed. The ODOT Intergovernmental Agreement, or IGA, for the federal transportation funds, typically, and this has been for several years, includes a provision requiring the city to adopt a council resolution that expresses the necessity and the purpose of the land acquisitions necessary for a particular project. Such a resolution would also serve as a first step towards condemning the property interest, although I want to continue to stress that Public Works Engineering considers condemnation or the exercise of eminent domain as an option of last resort. So the question is, why are we here doing this now? When I just said that this has been a clause in the contracts for years now. And for many years, the city interpreted this requirement in the IGA to be applicable when we couldn't come to agreement with the property owners and we needed to proceed to condemnation. ODOT has recently insisted to us that the resolution be passed for any projects that include right-of-way acquisition, and that the federal funding is predicated on the city's commitment to acquiring the needed property interests in a timely manner and at a reasonable cost, documented by the passage of this resolution. So the AIS for the work session had a template resolution that was prepared by Mark Cannon of the City Attorney's Office to comply with the IGA requirement and ORS. And I did see that Mark is here with us today. So if council has any questions about the resolution, I'm sure that he would be happy to answer those. And then finally, for as far as the process that I wanted to run by you, I am proposing that we bring the needed resolutions to council through the consent agenda. As I said, most of these are for temporary easements, so they're not particularly controversial or complicated. And I am looking for any direction from council on the types of projects or right-of-way needs which you may feel that the regular agenda is a more appropriate place over the consent agenda. But regardless, staff will be prepared to present information on any of the resolutions that council wants to pull from a consent agenda. And that is all that I have prepared for this item. And I welcome any questions or direction that you have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very succinct. And but it looks like we have a couple of questions. So Councilor Clark, then Councilor Keating.
Thank you, Mayor Jennifer. Wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. That was very succinct. The city's standing policy is different than the the understood policy required by the feds for the sake of us getting the money?
That is
Why?
correct.
Thank you. Why? I'm glad to know I understood you well. That's good. That's excellent. Why is the city's policy currently what it is, and why do you think it is? It was set up that way at odds to why why would the federal government's policy be different than the way we had this and have had this originally?
You know, I can't necessarily answer the historical question. From what I can tell, even though this is on federally funded projects, the federal rules say that we need to follow state law. And so this is really, I feel like this is ODOT's interpretation of state law. And since they oversee the expenditure of federal funds, federal transportation funds in Oregon, they're dictating this requirement in our IGAs for the federal funds. But
I understand. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's a question for the city attorney's office to understand why they might have a different interpretation than Oregon does on this.
Excellent. I love picking on her. City attorney.
Well, as much as I do enjoy that, Councilor Clark, I actually am going to, this is a wonderful opportunity for me to introduce to you Mark Cannon, who is the latest addition to the city attorney's office. And he's actually now been here for almost 2 years, I think, or close to 2 years. But it's been largely in the pandemic. So I will let you be kind, Councilor Clark.
I haven't picked on him yet. So, awesome.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. So ODOT has not explained their rationale for why they want this requirement in. I can give a little bit more background just generally to the lay of the land so far as condemnation law is oriented generally. Very briefly, condemnation is largely a product of state statute. It's very prescriptive. It's essentially a open up the state law and check the boxes as you go down the list. And a resolution by council explaining the public necessity for acquiring the property is one of those first check the box items. The fact that you pass a resolution like this does not commit us to continuing to check those boxes through the condemnation proceeding. It's just one of the very preliminary steps that are required to be taken.
I assume that what we're doing is giving staff direction that'll come back to us as ordinance or a resolution that'll then go through maybe a work session or something else before it ends up in front of us for a vote. Is that correct?
I'll jump in here. That wasn't my recommendation because you would end up having a work session on every project where we get any sort of state or federal funds. And so if there was something where there was, like, we actually thought there was going to be some sort of condemnation, yes, I would absolutely say we should be talking about this early and often. I think for most of the projects, like the ones where we'll be getting temporary easements, it would be on the consent calendar. That would be my recommendation.
I appreciate and respect your recommendations. They're almost always incredibly well thought through. Councilor Taylor and I used to have regular arguments about the purpose of government. It was kind of an arcane sort of argument we'd have pretty frequently, but my point was always that the purpose of government is to protect people's individual rights. And so, and hers was that, if she'll forgive me for paraphrasing her, that, it existed to get done stuff you couldn't get done individually. I think I'm right. And as a result, I hesitate really strongly to streamline anything that comes close to condemnation, even a step one. I understand the utility of it. I understand the reason why. I understand the fact that it helps us get the money we need to do some really worthwhile stuff. Anything that walks close to, we're going to take somebody's rights for the public good for the sake of the fact that we get the state or federal money to do it. I don't know, man. I don't think that should be a consent item and taken that lightly. I may be wrong about this, and I might vote differently at that time, but that's my gut level instinct is that people's property rights, even when contributing to the better public good in some cases, need to be treated very specially and very carefully. So I don't know the answer. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Keating and then Councillor Syret.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillor Clark and Councillor Taylor, you're both right. I figured you'd appreciate that, Mike. When I hear the term eminent domain as a means of last resort, I wonder if that edict comes from ODOT, the state, or the feds. And I have real consternation and concern about public necessity or the public good. How subjective is that? Is a freeway? Is laying ground for high-speed rail or high-speed internet or laying ground for high-speed rail good enough public good? So I have a lot of heartburn and a lot of consternation around the language, as my colleague expressed. And I would caution us to fold anything so potentially damaging to one's investment for their family, whether it be their business or their home. When it comes to eminent domain, my hackles go up as an American. Is there any comment in response to the issue raised and the examples given?
Yeah, I mean, I can just respond somewhat to that, to your questions and comment. So the option of last resort is our internal policy. Since I've been at the city for 16 years, I'm not aware of Public Works Engineering using condemnation to acquire property in all that time, and for our projects. And I think, and I believe, and Mark can correct me, but that language that you're referring to around public necessity is actually straight from the ORS and is required in the words of the resolution. So it's not a judgment coming from the feds or from us on judging the need for the project. And we're really talking about projects that council has approved in the CIP and has given us the direction to go get grant funds to help fund those projects through the MPC and the other organizations that we belong to. And so this is not something that we're taking as a blanket resolution to adopt on all the projects that we do. It will be about specific projects when we know what the right of way, whether it's permanent or temporary, is needed on that specific project. So we'll be fairly long down the design process, and we'll be really specific about what is needed on those projects when we bring that resolution to you. Does that help answer some of your questions?
Until we see said resolution and said examples, as yeah, it's satisfactory for the moment. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Syret and then Councillor Evans.
Thank you. So first, a little sarcasm. ODOT didn't explain their reasoning about something. Oh my goodness, what a shock. So I would like to know a little bit more about when in the process of us working on one of these projects, and I would say like our Franklin Boulevard redesign would be an example, right, of a project that's we believe is gonna have federal funding, and we would probably have to be prepared with one of these resolutions. So where in the process do you anticipate a resolution coming forward using Franklin Boulevard as an example?
Right. So as I kind of quickly went through the different phases of a project development, It's usually very late in the project development because for a federally funded project, they won't authorize you to actually acquire right away until you've done quite a lot of the environmental work that you need to get NEPA clearance for the project. And their rationale for that is that they don't want to spend money acquiring property that then they can't get NEPA clearance on to actually build the project. And so from that standpoint, then you also need to be fairly far along in your design process to be able to adequately know what the impacts of your project are going to be environmentally. So given those two things, you have to be pretty far along in your design before you're actually approaching people to talk about what the property impacts are from the project and what the project may need to use as far as, like I said, most of the time we're coming to need right away for temporary construction easements for like driveway adjustments, and building entrances is a very common thing that you'll see around, like curb ramps in sidewalks. When we're replacing those, we'll need to adjust entries and driveways to connect with the new sidewalk and curb ramps that we're putting in. Is a very common thing that we have on our projects.
And I think specifically the first project you'll see right out of the gate in November is the 8th Street improvements as part of the Farmers Market and Park Block improvements. So that's
Correct.
how far along it is.
Okay. So the way I understand this, it's a change in the process. They want these assurances earlier in the process that we're committed to following through. If God forbid we had to do eminent domain, but that's the last resort as far as the city is concerned, and all other efforts are put forward before we do that. And it doesn't mean that every resolution will result in us permanently acquiring the property that we've passed a resolution on. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the project that Sarah just mentioned, the 8th Avenue Streetscape project, there's, I think, 4 pieces of just temporary easements total for that project. And it's all around driveway adjustments and matching existing paving.
So temporary means that we're just using the property while we build it, and then it goes back. It's never transfers ownership. It's just we get access to it.
We just get temporary permission from the property owner to do the construction work. So typically what that will look like is that we have to remove some driveway pavement that is technically on their property in order to match up with the new pavement that we've just installed, or sidewalk that we've installed.
Yeah, and I think as Jennifer said, to the concern that we're going to be building freeways, we're not going to be building freeways. We're going to be dealing with our city streets, and these are projects that we have approved through our through our previous process and planning. And so I don't have any actually have any heartburn with these being in our consent agenda, because we can all read our consent agenda packets. And if there's a resolution in there that causes us concern, we can ask for it to be pulled and have a discussion about it. So I think there's a fail-safe in there in terms of this council being aware and having oversight, and being mindful of where we're potentially looking at a takings of private property. So that's how I feel about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Evans, and then Councilor Groves.
Yeah, Jennifer, you mentioned the MPC, which is basically our MPO for this area. What role does the MPO have with the state in terms of this kind of operation? Because when I served on the MPO, we dealt with a lot of state and federal funding of projects that we had a conversation on. This doesn't seem to be the same way, or maybe I'm misinterpreting that. But if you could provide some clarity for me on the role of the MPO, that would be, very helpful.
Yeah, so these projects are the projects that are being awarded through the MPO. So the formula federal funds that we get to our MPO that then we distribute to projects within our MPO. So those federally funded projects. But it could also be federally funded projects that we get funded directly through ODOT. So we'll sometimes have bridge projects or different active transportation projects that we get federal grant funds directly through ODOT.
Yeah. So this is one of those situations where it doesn't necessarily have to go through an MPO process. They could go straight to us from the state, through federal. Okay, I got it.
Okay, Councilor Groves.
Thank you, Mayor. And Jennifer, just to confirm, this is a process we need to go through tonight, just so we'll remain eligible for certain funding opportunities as we do projects, correct?
So just to clarify, I'm not asking you to approve anything or pass a resolution here tonight. I just wanted to give you a heads up and just get some feedback on what the process might look like on future requests. But I don't have a request here for you tonight. It was just because, we have not gone through this in public works engineering and come to council asking for these resolutions. That's why I just wanted to have a short conversation with you so that, you weren't taken off guard or surprised by this coming before you.
Okay, I appreciate that. I too have concern with eminent domain and really anything that smells like government overreach, but that's not what we're worrying about here tonight. And I'm not going to worry about it until that comes up. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. It looks like everyone's had their questions answered. Jennifer, thank you very much. That was actually a very helpful conversation about this. And I think we all feel much more grounded on this particular shift. So with that, I believe all our business of the evening is finished and we are now adjourned.